treat for you now.
It's December 1988 when Aussie pop idols Kylie and Jason fail to achieve Christmas #1, and The Naked Gun was taking the cinema by storm.
Nice beaver.
Thank you. I just had it stuffed.
Let me help you with that.
At this time, a brand new, all singing and all dancing set of Space Marine Chaplain miniatures were released. There were 6 in total to choose from, and these fantastic metal figures would come in a blister pack of 3. Yes, 3 Chaplains. The price you would pay for said 3-man blister pack was £2.50, an absolute bargain. What's that in today's money? About a fiver? £7.50 maybe? I'm no inflation expert. All 6 of these Chaplains were sculpted by Mark Copplestone, one of the greatest miniature figure sculptors ever. Well, I think so anyway. My name's Marcel, and this is Snakeworks. We were all fans of Kylie Minogue back in the day. Not so much Jason Donovan though. Now looking back, it would appear he was just riding on her coattails, as it were. Now speaking of the Minogues, I was more of a Danny Minogue fan myself. There were 2 big reasons for that. Dark hair and big earrings. Wonderful. So today's big question is, who was the better Minogue? Kylie or Danny? Let's run out. Okay, so here we have our first Chaplain of the 6, and I think you will agree it's a beauty. So normally, you expect your Chaplains to be wearing a deep dark black coloured armour. Well, not so much on this one. It looks more like grey to me. Is that just the painter's rendition of black, or did the all black come later? I couldn't tell you. The Chaplain has a rather interesting helmet design. It has the look of a face. The face of what I can only describe as a gorilla. Has anyone done a gorilla-themed Space Marine chapter yet? The Space Chimps, or the Silverbacks maybe. Talking of gorillas reminds me of the old movie Gorillas in the Mist. I have memories of that movie scaring the hell out of me as a kid, but I couldn't tell you why. I guess I better go back and re-watch it to find out.
What does book say when a gorilla charges?
In the Chaplain's hand is a bolter, or bolt gun. It looks a little smaller than what I'm used to, so an argument could be made that it's actually a bolt pistol. If I did have to put money on it though, I would say it's a normal bolter, but I'm intrigued as to what you guys think. The Chaplain is also holding his usual party piece, a Crozius Arcanum. It took me many years to understand how to pronounce Crozius. As a kid I couldn't say it. I always called it Acerlius or something. You know when you just get stuck with mispronunciations for years? I have the same with Adeptus Arbites. People say they hate me saying it like that, but I think it sounds so much better than Arbites. Anyway, I'm digressing. The Crozius this time is gold, like the idol in Indiana Jones. It also has little stubby wings, giving it the look of a 1980s toy missile. They used to slot in like the infamous Boba Fett missile-firing backpack. There would be a little spring-loaded button that you would press to fire it across the room. These would usually be coloured red or orange and also lost within hours of opening said toy. Attached to the Chaplain's waist or belt is a little book. For some reason, I thought this was more of a librarian thing. Don't they carry little spellbooks around? Maybe this is the Chaplain's naughty list, a list of Marines that need chaplaining. I've no idea what the proper term should be. Okay, so moving on now to our second Chaplain of the bunch. Again, like the first, I think this one is a nice miniature. So judging by the clues, what we're looking at here is a Chaplain of the Space Wolves chapter. The biggest clue being the Space Wolf chapter logo on the Chaplain's left leg. This is the old, more basic looking wolf head logo. To me, I think it looks better than the more detailed black wolf head the Space Wolves have today, but I'm interested to hear what you guys think about this opinion. One of the things I think that are great about this Chaplain are his keyboard teeth. I think it's supposed to be a stylised skull motif, but those pearly whites really do stand out. If he had a thermos, we would call him Dwayne Dibley. Dwayne Dibley? Dwayne Dibley? This time, I'm confident in saying the weapon our Chaplain is carrying is in fact a bolter, and I reckon you guys would agree. It would also appear he also has a bolt pistol, and that one is maglocked to his thigh. There is something we do need to address though. Usually we expect our Chaplains to have their Crozius in hand, but this Chaplain does not. What he does seem to have instead is either a bunch of cartoon TNT or a stack of Savaloys from the local chip shop. And now I'm craving chips again. Regarding his sausage stack, I can't actually tell if it's attached to his bolter in some manner or if he's just somehow managing to cradle them in the crook of his arm. I guess we need to buy this exact miniature to find out. Compared to some of the other Chaplains in this video, this Chaplain doesn't have as many skulls dotted about his person. He has a couple on his shoulder pad, but that's pretty much it. I think I can make out a studded codpiece though, and that's a decent trade-off I think.
Now when I was a boy in the early days of Warhammer, for some reason I was never really a fan of Chaplains. I always found the black look a little boring and uninteresting, too dark and dull for me. However, nowadays I am starting to appreciate them more, and I've no idea why that is. Now if you fancy discussing changes of tastes or anything else hobby related, then please feel free to come along and join us on our friendly Discord server, which is not behind a paywall. I'll stick a link in the description below and one up here for you. We look forward to chatting to you there.
The next Chaplain up on our chopping block of love is a Crimson Fist. We know he's a Crimson Fist because his fist is crimson. I suppose there might be another blue chapter that paints their hands red, but I can't say I know of any off the top of my head. Actually, I think the Night Lords do it too. Now this Chaplain's helmet is really rather interesting indeed. It doesn't look like your typical stylised marine helmet. This one actually looks more like an actual skull. It's very good looking. Amusingly, as it's a glossy black, it also looks like some of the bondage gear you get in Ann Summers. I wonder if that's still a thing. Not that I would know, I've never been in there. Back in the 1970s, there used to be a certain item of fashion that a few men liked to wear. The medallion. It's basically a long necklace with massive metal discs hanging on them. I think one of the biggest fans of the medallion was probably Mr. T.
The name is Mr. T. First name is Mr. Middle name is that period. Last name is T. Listen and listen good. I'm talking to you.
Down the front of the Chaplain's trousers are those strange stripe embellishments we see on some officer miniatures from around this time. They were usually painted gold, such is the case here. I never really knew what they were or why they were there, so if any of you guys know then please feel free to let us all know. I also think this Chaplain has the typical skull themed shoulder pads, although this time they are blue. His right pad also has a red something up where an eye would be, giving the look of one of those old Mad Ball toys. Remember those things? Again, it would help if we had the miniature in hand. I shall try my best to acquire one, but I've a feeling it would get expensive. Moving on to the Chaplain's weapons, we have some interesting features. Firstly, the bolter. Although at first glance it looks rather normal, a lot like your typical bolter. This one seems to have the grip in the middle of the body of the weapon. Maybe it's movable on a slide. Would it mess up the centre of gravity and thus the recoil? I'm no firearms expert. I'm afraid I couldn't tell you, but I bet one of you guys are though. So secondly, there's the Chaplain's close combat weapon. I like to call this one the power cutlass. It looks less like a sword and more like something Captain Hook would use. Do the White Scars sometimes have swords like these? I'm betting they have a proper name. Whatever it is, I don't know it. Unlike the two previous Chaplains, this Chaplain has a banner pole. He must be top of the class boy. The eagle on the top of the banner pole looks like he's flashing. He's very happy to be up there. The banner also has what I think is the first appearance of the old 40k motif. Be just and fear not. What does that even mean? Do what's right and don't worry? I'm hoping a more educated person will be along shortly to tell us. Of all the Chaplain miniatures we're taking a gander at today, I think I might have to go out on a limb and say that this is my favourite of the bunch. It was a hard choice, but I'm sticking with it. I have a sneaking suspicion this miniature is what the Blood Angels Chaplain on the cover of the Battle Manual is based on, a cracking piece of artwork. However, this Chaplain is not painted as an aforementioned Blood Angel. Are there any keen-eyed viewers out there who fancy having a crack at guessing the chapter of this Chaplain? Well, I think it's a Nova Marine. You don't see much of them these days, but they were shown from time to time in the Rogue Trader era. There was a nice Space Hulk diorama featuring them one day, and I'll try to show it to you at some point. Again, we have yet another bondage-themed looking helmet. This time, it looks like the Marine has one of those ball gag masks on. I've never seen one myself in real life, but I've seen them in movies like Pulp Fiction and in various media. What even was the point of these things? I never really did understand them. Do they just make you look a bit silly? Again, much like all I think of our previous Chaplains, this guy has a big skull shoulder pad ensemble. Although this time we don't have bright blue. We have a more normal looking bone colour. My eyes are reading a grey shaded bone, as opposed to the typical beige brown bone we usually expect to see, and I think that's lovely. Nowadays, everyone is all about the OSL on their plasma weapons. Back in the day, you hardly saw it, if ever. They were usually just painted green or something. Well, this time, the plasma coil is painted red. This might be the only red plasma coil I've seen on an actual heavy metal miniature. The painters even put red in the little venti portholes on the tip. Great stuff. On this Chaplain's Crozius is something I've never seen before. I don't even know if it was intentional. The skull-faced eagle on the top has his own skull hat on. It's like a double-stacked skull. It reminds me a bit of those double-stacked skull things in the Castlevania games. I think it was called a bone pillar.
Castlevania 4, in my opinion, was the best of all the Castlevania games ever made. Even better than Symphony of the Night, which is good, but still no Castlevania 4. I just think 4 had a better look and feel to it. The atmosphere of that game was wonderful. Now, speaking of things that are wonderful, if you're enjoying this video, then please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. That means you, Simon. If you are enjoying the content on the channel, then please consider joining us on Patreon, the link to which is in the description below, and I'll stick one up here for you. Or you could even become a channel member, which is becoming all the rage these days. Again, there's a link to that in the description below.
So this is a very pretty Chaplain miniature, isn't it? It's very clean and tidy. Good stuff. So at first glance you might be forgiven for assuming what we're looking at here is a Chaplain of the Blood Angels Persuasion, because of the red panels you see. But it's not a Blood Angel, is it? Oh no, it's a Howling Griffin. The Howling Griffins are a chapter that usually appears for short periods out of obscurity and then vanish again. Examples being the Badab War series, a few armies featured in the pages of White Dwarf, and also that old Land Raider cutaway poster from the early 2000s, which everyone at my local store seemed to froth at the mouth over. I'm not sure why that was. Maybe I was missing something. I feel the Howling Griffins would have been more popular if they hadn't featured two notoriously hard painting challenges together. Firstly, yellow, which isn't quite as hard as it used to be, and also a quartered paint scheme. Nice, crisp, divided panels using yellow and red is probably a real pain in the arse. This Chaplain also has another interesting looking helmet design. This time we have a tube coming out of the mouth area with an array of sharp looking teeth around it. These are literally just white triangles, and the sort of circular arrangement to them reminds me of a lamprey or something. That's a sort of fish. He also has a golden nose, and I think that's great. I also just noticed he seems to have a roll of sushi on the top of his head. Very avant-garde. In the Chaplain's left hand is a very snazzy looking chainsword indeed. It has an almost gold or bronzy look to it. It's all painted the same colour too, so it looks a bit more like a bronze reproduction rather than a functional weapon. Our Chaplain is also equipped with the smallest bolt pistol known to mortal men. It's tiny. It looks a bit like James Bond's tiny pistol. What was that? A Walther PPK? That reminds me of a question I've always had regarding these weapons. When you see people screw silencers into the barrel, doesn't this then reduce the barrel diameter, therefore obstructing it, or do they screw it on somewhere else? I never could understand that. Now, as we come to expect from a Chaplain, the miniature is covered in a lot of skulls and skull motifs. We have a skull on the banner with a skull-shaped banner pole topper, and there are little skulls painted on the knee pads, and to cap it all off, there's even a little skull painted on his crotch. On the Marine's right leg is a teeny tiny Howling Griffins logo. This is one of the most complicated and detailed of all the Space Marine chapter logos, so the painter really has done a fantastic job on managing to do this on such a small area. Back then, there was no such thing as a big decal sheet with all these logos on. You did get a few decals on the tiny little sheets for the 4 main chapters early on, but there were no decals for any of these less well-known chapters. We have it easy these days. Also, I'm aware I'm pronouncing decals wrong and it should be decals, or something else. Again, like a couple of the previous Chaplains, we have that interesting gold banding down the front of the Chaplain's legs. It also has this mottled or textured look to it, almost like it's been eaten away by acid or etched in somehow. I've just been over and checked the Warhammer store, and none of the new Chaplain miniatures have this motif anymore, and I feel they need to bring it back, because it looks nice. This Chaplain right here hails from a chapter that I can't name. I see no visual identification markers, clues or signs giving me any indication on what chapter he could be from. I suppose the white helmet itself could be a clue. Is this Chaplain a white scar? That would be my only guess. If you have a better guess, then please let us all know in the comments below. Compared to the other Chaplain's more extravagant looks, I would have to say this one looks a lot more normal. He looks more like the later Chaplains we see in 2nd edition 40k and onwards. Some of the metal ones that came out around 4th edition I believe were really nice, especially that metal Terminator Chaplain. That was lovely. None of the newer incarnations even come close. This Chaplain, like all the others, does have massive skull-shaped shoulder pads, although these skulls have massive overbites. They look a bit more like orc skulls or something to me. They seem almost animalistic. All over the Chaplain's armour are little studs, a bit like me back at high school. I'm not sure if these have a purpose or if they're supposed to be purely decorative, but there's loads on the shoulder pad, forearm, leg, and of course his codpiece. I'm sure I saw something like that in Blackadder once. Does anyone else remember Blackadder? I tried to find a clip, but I couldn't, so maybe I dreamt it. The Chaplain's right arm is in an intriguing position. I can't quite tell what he's doing with it. He's either holding a grenade or something that we can't see, or he's itching his armpit. Your guess is as good as mine on that one. Unlike the other Chaplains, this guy's Crozius looks a little, how shall I say, intriguing. We have a cylindrical tube with a little stubby mushroom or bell-shaped skull on the end. It looks a bit like a plasma gun tip. The little eagle on the end also looks a little more awkward than normal. I think it's because its head is so big compared to his body. Whatever the reason is, it still looks brilliant. In my opinion, of course.
Alright then, so which of those Chaplains was your favourite? If you want to see some more Oldhammer themed videos, then check out the playlists up here somewhere. And as always, thank you very much for watching.